This is episode 510, Increasing Self-Worth and Confidence with Erin. Welcome to Life Coaching with Christine Hassler, a space where truth and love come together to guide you back to your truest self. Hi, I'm Christine, a master coach, author, and spiritual psychologist. For over 20 years, I've supported people through the deep work of letting go, waking up, and coming home to who they truly are. Each week, you'll hear an unedited, unscripted coaching session with someone moving through a challenge or block in their life. These are tender and powerful conversations where deep healing happens in real time. Even though I'm coaching someone else, you will hear yourself in their story. This is a place where you will feel seen and supported and walk away with insight, emotional relief, and tools you can apply in your own life. Let's dive into today's session. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. If you missed my coach's corner last week, you want to go back and check that out. My sweet Athena was quote unquote working in my office with me and made a cute little cameo and had some sweet things to say. And then I also spoke about my women's retreat, which I mentioned in my call with Erin. I aired a Zoom that I did, early answering questions and telling more specifically what we do at the retreat and what it's all about, and address some of your objections and concerns. So you're going to want to check that out. I also want to let you all know that I have completed with 2 clients, which means I have space for 2 new clients. I only take 4 people at a time. It is an investment of time and energy. You get a lot of me. And you get my, 30 years of training and teaching. And so many of the teachers I've learned from have transitioned and aren't on the planet anymore. And my many modalities that I've been trained in, everything from somatic work to nervous system healing to developmental psychology to priestess to on and on and on and on. The channel that opens up for me with my one-on-one clients is pretty profound. And a lot of coaches don't do one-on-one work anymore. And I will never stop. The value of that one-on-one is incredibly, incredibly transformative. And I have always had my own coaches and always will. And the container that I hold is really one of giving you the support and unconditional love and reflection that the psyche and the soul need to really evolve and to get out of a lot of habits and patterns. So if you are ready for that kind of love, that kind of support, message Jill at christinehassler.com. She can hop on a call with you and walk you through more of the details. My guest today, Erin. Speaking of my women's retreat, she is the perfect candidate, like any of you listening, as long as you're a woman, truly are. We dive into self-worth, we dive into identity, we dive into a lot of great stuff. So as you're listening to this call, consider, did you feel different growing up? Did you feel like you always had to fit into someone else's mold and it was not a mold that really fit you? Do you doubt yourself, judge yourself? Are you really hard on yourself? Do you not take risks because you don't want to quote unquote fail? Do you beat yourself up? Do you really desire the kind of confidence that you think it would require to have what you actually want in life? So keep these questions in mind as you listen to my coaching call with Erin. Do you feel like you're thriving or just surviving? And could it be because you are not getting the sleep you need? Well, I want to introduce you to Beam Dream Powder. So in addition to having a 3-year-old child who wakes up many nights and being in my midlife where things like perimenopause are starting to set in, sleep can sometimes feel very elusive to me, which is why I have loved Beam Dream Powder. It really changes things. Dream is an all-natural sleep blend with science-backed ingredients designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, that's the one I need help with, and wake up feeling refreshed. And unlike other sleep aids, there's no next day grogginess, just real deep sleep that helps you actually feel good in the morning. Since adding Dream to my routine, I've been sleeping through the night without tossing and turning. I wake up actually refreshed, not groggy, not exhausted, just ready to take on the day. And I'm not the only one. Beam has improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep, and 92% of users surveyed reported better sleep and waking up feeling refreshed. So for a limited time, Beam is giving my listeners their best offer yet. up to 40, yes, I said 40% off. Try their best-selling dream powder and get 40% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com and use Over It at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/over it and use code Over It for up to 40% at checkout. Erin, welcome to the show. How can I help?
So I was thinking about how to narrow down for an issue. And there's a lot going on that I could talk about and get into. But what I was realizing is that most of the things I'm experiencing in terms of issues is a lack of self-trust, a lack of self-worth, experiencing self-betrayal. And so noticing how that's showing up in so many areas of my life, in relationships that have gone poorly, feeling like a low self-confidence in my work, and just, a multitude of areas. And so I think that through line would be really helpful to look at and get into.
Okay. So I'm sure you've given this some thought in terms of the origin of this, because no one's born with low self-worth, but it can actually, maybe you can be, but no one incarnates with that. So what do you feel was the trigger for this?
Sure. I think it's a couple things. When I look to how I was modeled from my parents, I also notice they demonstrate low self-worth, like low self-confidence, lots of self-criticism and judgment. And so I think part of it is modeling. And then recently I was assessed to be neurodivergent. And I can see how I've interpreted people's response to me is, saying I'm weird, or, that I don't communicate well, or that I'm just kind of out there, is kind of the feedback that I've received my entire life. And I think I internalized that as I'm wrong. I can't do it right. Just this constant feeling of like, oh, as hard as I try, and it does feel like I'm trying so hard to show up well and to, be quote unquote good. It always feels like I'm misperceived, or often. There are a few people that I feel really connected to, but more often than not, especially in the environment I grew up in, it just felt like no one gets me. Like, like I'm not good enough. I'm not doing things right. I'm not saying the right things. And so I think it's those two things of watching people who had a similar take on the world, of just, that self-criticism, then projecting that outward. And then also the neurodivergent piece, which, really recently learning about that and just being like, oh, no wonder I felt so different. And then, the grief of having directed that feeling of other inward, or, to myself, as being really like mistreating myself and judging myself and having so much self-criticism.
Yeah, I really hear you. Did the diagnosis, I'm just using the word diagnosis because I don't really think being neurodivergent is a diagnosis. I actually think it's, you have blonde hair, you have brown hair. I feel it's quite normal and quite common. And it's becoming more and more the norm as we're evolving as humans. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, we're just beginning to understand it. I use that word diagnosis, but it doesn't feel like the right word to use.
Right.
But I want to ask you, did that bring any relief?
100%. I was like, oh, that's what it is. Feeling like I've been searching my whole life and just being like, what is going on? Why can't I figure this out? And then to hear that as, as assessment, and just being like, that's it.
Yeah.
A flood of, and, and in the last 6 months since that assessment, just continuing to experience relief, and also like the grief I mentioned, just being like, oh, I've used this thing that is actually really beautiful and like so common, and I've used it to internalize so much shame and guilt and just so much criticism. So
yeah. So relief, Erin, is a super powerful feeling. Like you could ride that wave of relief to do a lot of healing around this, because relief is often the gateway to compassion. And compassion is one of the hugest ways we heal the inner child, through that like massive compassion and just being with the part of us that have been hurt. And so much of your lack of confidence has been because of a huge misunderstanding. a huge misunderstanding. And we will attract feedback externally that mirrors what we believe about ourselves. So if you had self-worth, insecurity, any of that, the world will push that button for you. Because remember, the entelechy of a soul is always to evolve. So life will poke at us until we let go of massive judgments and wounds that are holding us back from evolving more and more into love.
Yeah.
So what comes up for you when I say that?
Thankfully I have that. I have faith. I've always, since I was a little kid, had this faith of just knowing that I was protected and loved and held. And so it's so much dissonance to like have an experience in the world that is exactly opposite. And then to hold this feeling of like, that's not right. This isn't it.
Yeah.
And have sought comfort from therapy, from plant medicine, like all these avenues of really looking for healing and acceptance and, that love for the inner child. And so I do have a sense of faith and that knowingness, like there's more available to me. Like I know my world to be different with different choices and different beliefs.
How would you like your world to be different?
Oh gosh, I would love to be in more integrity with myself, which is why I spoke to the self-betrayal piece. So often I do get an intuitive hit or a knowing of like, that's not right for me, or, and it can be small and big choices, right? And the people pleasing, the accommodating, the acquiescing to others to kind of find like, oh, but am I good? That part. And so I would love for my life to be reflective of the knowingness that I have, that faith of a beautiful world and an abundant world with joy and peace and adventure, really knowing that that is available to me, and then recognizing the ways that I don't want to call it self-sabotage because that seems like a little bit hard.
It's self-protect.
Yeah.
Most people think they're sabotaging, but they're really just protecting themselves. We have big protector parts. So if you could change one thing currently in your life that falls under the umbrella of everything that you talked about, one specific thing, what would it be?
Okay. It would be to have the confidence and the ability, I don't want to say willpower, that's not quite it, but the ability to allow myself to be in silence, whether that's prayer or meditation. And I mean, not just like first thing in the morning, I mean, throughout my day, so that I can familiarize myself with my intuitive voice, with my soul knowing and yearning, so that when something comes up, which pushes against those boundaries, I have that safe place to go to, that place from which I can make decisions, listen to my intuition. Does that make sense?
Yes. What makes you think you need lots of pauses and quiet time to be super tapped into that?
Well, because right now I'm living oppositely. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and just distracting myself.
Okay. Or trying to help yourself, right? However that looks. Yeah. So the thing that keeps coming through for me is something, it's like an and. So what keeps coming through is really being an advocate for yourself and learning what your needs truly are and learning how to communicate them. And that involves boundaries, that involves speaking up for yourself, that involves, like you said, clarity around decisions, things like that. So how are you doing in that department in terms of really being an advocate for yourself, speaking up for yourself, knowing your needs, and being able to teach people how to treat you or communicate them clearly?
I would say I've gone from being maybe a 1 or 2 to like a 4 or 5 now. So room to grow, but it's getting
That's better. Incredible. Out of 10?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So that's going to be really, really important for you because a lot of confidence comes from evidence. Right. And being able to, even if it doesn't turn out like we wanted to, being able to speak up for ourselves. Like I was checking into a place yesterday and the person checking me in was actually being quite rude. And I didn't want to say anything because it was a younger man. I didn't want to get him in trouble, but he actually was being really rude to me. And so I said, could I please talk to a supervisor? I feel like you and I are just not having the greatest communication right now. And a supervisor came and I said, I need to let you know, like from my perspective, this man was being pretty impatient with me and was being pretty rude to me. That's a huge thing for me to do because especially as an empath and especially as someone who, wants to keep the peace and all of that and not have guilt over, I don't want to get this person in trouble, so on and so forth. But the work I have done in proving to my younger self that I can take care of her. That's just a silly example, not a silly example, but a small example, a simple example, proving that like I can take care of her and advocate for her needs. And like, she doesn't have to take crap just to make things easier for other people. It's been an incredible shift to my overall confidence because if you look at it, kids feel most confident with a parent that meets their needs. Not a parent with no boundaries, but kids find confidence when their needs at home are being met. Same thing with us as adults. Like our inner child feels confident when it feels like we're really taking care of it. And I think that you really looking at your day and at your life in terms of when am I withholding, when am I not speaking up? When is something at work being asked of me that actually isn't part of my job, or I need more help and I'm not getting it, or I was treated XYZ and I'm not saying anything about it. Like that makes the inner child feel more scared, less confident, and is going to impact your intuition because from my personal experience in working with people, I see people's intuition really open up when their inner child feels safe. Because It's often the inner child making the noise in the mind that makes it hard to hear intuition.
Yeah.
So does anything resonate with you from what I shared?
Absolutely. And what's coming up for me is that there are small practices, small ways that, what you identify it as an example of setting boundaries and really honoring our inner child throughout the day. It doesn't have to be this, grand gesture necessarily. But it can be these really small shifts and just like consistently showing up for ourselves that can rewire that behavior, right? Or
exactly.
Yeah, like
exactly.
Infuse some of that confidence and being like, oh, I took care of myself even in this small instance where I felt disrespected. And I think maybe that's what I meant. Instead of like a lot of silence, I'd like to restate that as, opportunities throughout the day where I can practice this. So it's like, here I am showing up again for myself. Well done.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And reinforce that.
Yes. Because if your whole life felt different and like something was wrong with you, and we have this something is wrong with me story, we become really good at being a chameleon. Mm-hmm. And self-betrayal becomes a pretty common everyday experience. And what happens is then we have kind of a rebel that acts out. And we just want to like not even take care of ourselves because we're being so good for everybody else. Then it activates the rebel part. So there's this like good girl rebel thing that happens inside of us. But if we can really get to like one, full acceptance, because I believe the definition of confidence is radical self-acceptance. Like radical self-acceptance, meaning like I accept even the parts of me that I'm working on shifting. I totally love and accept all parts of me. It comes from that place. And when we are in that radical self-acceptance, we can not be the chameleon so much. And for you, like coming into, I wouldn't say a new identity, but a new understanding of yourself and how your brain works and the gifts that you have. Because when we try to adapt ourselves into a form that doesn't fit who we are, one, it's exhausting. Two, the inner child is like, no one sees me. I feel so alone. And three, like we kind of forget our magic and our gifts because so much energy has gone into trying to be somebody else. So it feels to me like you're on the brink of really, not even on the brink, like you're stepping into really going, this is who I am. This is who I am. And as much as there's that part of you that's trying to heal and fix some things, I'd like to also encourage you to really get excited and celebrate all the qualities that are going to light back up again, because you're not trying to fit a round peg into a square hole anymore, or a square peg into a round hole, whatever the saying is,
Yeah. I love that. What was coming up for me when you were talking is this, and I've talked to some friends about the neurodivergence piece, and they're like, really? I never experienced that of you. And my felt sense of that was like, man, I am a pro masker. Like I was really shapeshifted into whatever people needed me to be, and recognizing that I can take that power, that, whatever that magic is, and use it for self-expression and authenticity, and how amazing that would feel, and how my life could shift from that place.
Yes. And again, I'm not a neuroscientist or a neurologist or anything with a bunch of letters after my name, but from what I know about what we're calling neurodivergent, that is generally people who are more right-brained. And like, you've probably had to go in your head a lot to try to figure out how to be. And so I'm wondering, like, how connected to your body you feel, and especially like how connected to your emotions you feel, and how you're able to like run those through your body.
I would say, without exaggeration, completely disconnected from both my body and my feelings. Like that is a whole new way to experience the world that I don't even quite know how to do, because of course my mind kicks in immediately and it's like, how do I analyze this? How do I hack this? How do I figure this out?
Right. Right. Because you saw growing up that people who can figure things out with their mind have an easier time in life.
Yeah.
So that's what you're trying to do, but your thinking isn't actually your greatest gift. I mean, your way of thinking, like your natural way of thinking probably is, but the way you've kind of made yourself think probably drains a lot of your energy, quite frankly.
So exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to quote unquote figure things out. It's like, using a nail file to build a house. It's just the wrong tool.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'd recommend, are you by any chance coming to my retreat?
I'm not. I wish I were.
Bummer. I wish you were too, because that would be it. I would just be like, come and you will get reconnected to your body and emotions in 3 days, and have a reference point for the rest of your life in a really beautiful, loving way where you'll feel so accepted. So if there's any way, shape, or form that you can be there, I'd highly recommend it. If it's not possible in any way, I would start trying to find things that get you into your body, whatever kind of movement that is. It can be yoga, it can be dance, it can be twerking, I don't care. Like something that moves you into your body. And also to get a little in touch with emotions, like watch the movie Inside Out. Let your inner child, sit down with your inner child, watch the movie, and kind of set the intention of like, I'm reconnecting to my emotions. I want to make emotions okay, because my sense is you probably have a lot of them, and exhaust yourself trying to keep them down. So what do you do when you get mad? What do you do when you get sad?
Typically, I do have a lot of emotions. I just want to validate that. And I would say when an emotion comes up, I'm pretty quick to try to bypass it into, so say if someone hurts my feelings or, makes me mad, I'm pretty quick to try to like explain why they did what they did, from a place of thinking, oh, everyone's doing the best they can, thus and such, I rarely allow myself to have the full feeling before I get to the bigger view.
Yeah. And you make excuses for people, which is what many children do for their parents. Yeah. And they're not getting what they need. So it's probably a very well ingrained survival strategy, because you have to make excuses for the people that are supposed to take care of you. Otherwise it hurts too much. So that's just probably trickled down into other people. So do you have Expectation Hangover? My last book?
No, I don't.
Okay. So either get that. I also recorded it in Audible in my voice. So you can get it audio if you want that way. Read the book, but especially pay attention to the emotional section, because part of where it feels like you are in your life is making feelings okay again and not bypassing them, because that's just self-betrayal anyway. Like, we don't want to gaslight ourselves. If somebody hurts your feelings and then you make excuses for them, you're basically gaslighting yourself, which is going to just fill up the self-betrayal bucket even more, which you're trying to empty out. So it's not about blaming people. It's not about making people wrong, but it is about like letting yourself feel the hurt, letting yourself feel the anger, allowing yourself to have a cry about it, to do release writing about it, which I explain in Expectation Hangover, to do an anger release. That's also in the book. And move that energy. This doesn't have to be an all at once type of thing, but to start by honoring your feelings. Like, I'm feeling hurt, period. Okay. Where do I feel in my body? Start there. Like, where do I feel in my body? What does it feel like? You know, how does my body want to express this? Getting to know your feelings and making them safe. That's why I wish you could come to the retreat, because I'd handle, like, you'd handle all this there and have like a somatic experience. But if you're doing it on your own, the emotional chapter and Expectation Hangover will help. And the biggest piece is not bypassing it, like making your feelings safe. Okay. Again, and knowing that you don't have to do anything about your feelings other than feel them. Like, it's really safe to feel feelings. You don't have to fix them. Feelings are energy, emotion, right? Energy in motion that need to move through. Otherwise, we just suppress them and end up depressed, anxious, with health stuff, creatively congested, all that kind of stuff. So is that something you think you can do?
Yeah, I will look into the retreat, but I'll definitely get the book today.
Yeah.
And what you just said about we don't have to do anything about our emotions, that really landed, because that is what, my brain interprets it as like, feeling.
Yeah.
What do we do? How do we fix this? How do we
Yeah.
readjust or convert this into something else? And so I've never really had that land in a way of being like, oh, literally all you have to do is feel them.
All you have to do is feel them. You don't have to do anything about them. You feel them, you allow them to move through with compassion, right? If we feel with, why am I feeling this? I need to fix it. I need to analyze it. I need to make it go away. I need to like call my therapist ASAP. Like, when we start to judge it, then the feeling, that was a wave, all of a sudden there's a dam.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move through. It gets stuck. So we want to have that compassion so that we can just ride the wave of our emotion all the way through. In the book, I talk about being a surfer, like really just riding the wave. And, if you watch a surfer surf, they just ride the wave until it ends.
Yeah.
That's the way it works. And that's how feelings, really emotions are. And there probably wasn't a lot of room for that in your family, because your parents were probably really uncomfortable with emotions and just wanted to fix things. So wanted to stay heady.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, there was no room for emotional expression growing up. And so it was very much taught and modeled, like, we don't feel. There's no room for, no time for that,
Well, the more accurate is we do feel, we just stuff it all inside.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow, I'm really having such a shift of understanding about, letting my mind take a back seat and rest about how it's been interpreting emotions as something to figure out and resolve, and then, fix and such, and allowing my body just to have the experience of what I feel like.
Yeah.
It almost sounds too easy. I mean,
it actually, it is. I struggled with depression and anxiety from, my childhood until around 30. And learning how to ride the waves of my emotion and releasing my feelings, like, was my cure. Like, truly. And I'm still, to this day, if I'm feeling irritable or exhausted or whatever, I either need a good cry or a good anger burn, or both. And after I do, it's like, oh my gosh, whew, feels so much better. And it's so primal. If you watch children, if they're not interrupted, if parents actually just don't try to fix their feelings or make them feel better, and just are with them when they ride the wave of their emotions, kids, they get to the other side of it. Like, we know how to do this. We're born knowing how to do this. We just get stunted because it makes other people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was what I was just about to say. Like, how can I tend to myself like I would to a child who's, having big feelings, and never wanting to say like, you're wrong,
Yep. Yep.
So,
Or here, have this lollipop, or people are looking, or that wasn't so big of a deal to get upset about, any of that, suppression, judgment, commentary, or over-soothing and rescuing, all of that tells a child it's not okay to feel.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope this added to your relief bucket.
Absolutely. I appreciate you acknowledging the relief. That's been a really welcome experience.
And thank you, Erin, for having the confidence and self-worth to manifest this coaching session. It's always interesting to me when people call in and feel like they don't have confidence, they're not moving forward in their life, but yet they get a spot on the show. And so what that tells me is a couple things. One, they're farther along than they often think. And two, their self-worth, and this kind of is part of one, their self-worth and their confidence isn't quite as low as they may believe, because to receive support, you've got to have some degree of worthiness. And to receive a slot on this show and be able to share publicly, you've got to have some confidence. So I just want to applaud you, Erin, and all of my guests that have ever been on the show on how far you've come, truly how far you've come. And there was so much we unpacked in the call with Erin. And what I want to underscore is how to leverage that feeling of relief. So awareness can bring a feeling of relief, but if we don't actually leverage that feeling, it kind of just becomes an aha that we take for granted. So often that relief is a doorway to deeper compassion with ourselves. Sometimes we can't get to compassion because something feels like such a burden. But if we can really ride that wave of relief, we have more access to our inner child, we have more access to compassion, and we have more access to a deeper understanding and appreciation of ourselves so that we can actually start to shift some things on a more permanent basis. And for so many of us, the shifts happen in those integration opportunities. They happen in those little moments where we make different choices, where we notice the old voice telling us something and we say, thank you. I know you're trying to protect me. Thank you for the information. And I'm going to choose this instead. So I'm excited for Erin. I'm excited for her to try everything that we've worked on, and especially for her to start exploring those feelings, especially for anyone that may identify as different or as neurodivergent. When we are suppressing those feelings, we're taking up so much energy, and it is those emotions that often unlock our creativity as well, and our confidence, truly. Suppressed emotions just wreaks havoc on all of our systems. So we really want to find ways to release those, which again, is why I host my women's retreat every other year. And it is only every other year. So if you're listening and thinking, I'll go next year, it won't be till 2027. So hop on to christinehassler.com/retreat and book your spot. Sending you so much love and many blessings. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Life Coaching. I hope something you heard today resonated with you and helped you to see yourself with more clarity and compassion. Remember, every shift, no matter how small you think it is part of your healing. If this episode supported you, please consider sharing it with a friend or leaving a review. It means the world to me. If you'd like to connect with me, come say hi on Instagram at Christine Hassler. And if you feel called to be coached live on the show, you can apply at christinehassler.com/waitlist. For courses, retreats, and more resources to support your journey, visit christinehassler.com. You're not alone in this journey, and I'm grateful to walk it with you. Until next time.